investors have been very, very focused on production. And one of the key questions has been, with the delays in the 737 MAX going back into service, can they hold production at 42, or will production have to go down yet again? If you remember, it was just last week that another delay was announced, came forth on the autopilot on the airplane. The FAA found another issue, and on that additional issue, it looks like the airplane won't get its airworthiness directive and go back into service until maybe the fourth quarter. If that's the case, then there might be another cut in production. We'll see. It's an open question right now.
Carter, what's your prognosis here? And I've seen some things written about that the stock is in a vulnerable place where there may be, I hate when they use like flying analogies for a stock, but like maybe there's an air pocket underneath Boeing shares right now if something doesn't break the right way for the company. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, look, I think we're in a sort of data-dependent phase here, right? I mean, this process is not in Boeing's control; it's out of Boeing's control, and so, I think it's right to watch production. It's right to be, cognizant of, the working capital thresholds that they hit and whether or not that needs to, necessitate another production cut. I mean, that is a key variable for, how the stock should perform short term. Longer term, I think what really matters is, what will the ultimate market share split between Airbus and Boeing be, and what does that imply for pricing and margins? This is the highest margin airplane that Boeing makes. So, we get the news of fly deal, which is, not even a firm order. So, I mean, I don't think in the grand scheme of things that is much in the way of news, and it could have been, dictated by schedule as much as anything else. But it does get at the point where what really will matter longer term is market share and pricing.
And as far as compensation for victims, et cetera, on the two crashes, that's going to be never going to be really material to the company.
The non-recurring costs that you take to get through this are pretty immaterial in the grand scheme of things. What really matters is you start thinking about thousands of airplanes priced at a different level, or a market share that's very different, 3, 4, 5 years from now. That'll massively dwarf, not only the upfront payments that you may incur, but also how people think about the earnings algorithm of the company.
Ron, at what point do you start pricing in a cascading impact of what the MAX is doing to its production line? For instance, could it keep customers from committing to the midsize airplane? Could it keep Boeing from producing and getting FAA approval of that new midsize plane?
Sure. So those are great questions. On the first point, the midsize airplane everybody thought would have been launched at the Paris Air Show. That didn't happen because all focus was on this aircraft. Airbus did launch an airplane called the A321XLR, which is right in the center of that segment. So, a couple of questions that you have to bear in mind are one, is Boeing going to launch this airplane? Their competitor has a very competitive product in the space. Two, on the 777X, I know you didn't ask about it, but it's going through certification right now. And with the FAA under increased scrutiny and Boeing under increased scrutiny, what impact's that going to have on the certification of that airplane? If I was a betting person, I'd say it's going to take longer for that airplane to get certified than anybody originally thought. And then three, if they do launch the middle of the market airplane, what does it mean for it? And again, it probably means with the increased scrutiny on the FAA and the certification process, that bringing that airplane into service will take longer.
And Airbus they bagged some orders for the XLR at the Paris Air Show.
Yeah,
right?
They did. Yeah, at the Paris Air Show, in fact, Boeing didn't get any firm orders. Airbus did, under the Boeing umbrella, if you will. Embraer did, but on the first day of the show, Air Lease ordered a bunch of the new fresh orders for the XLR.
At this point, Ron, so the stock is almost exactly flat for the last year and a half, but it's doubled over the past 2.5 years, right? So it's been this kind of plateauing of the stock price. What right now is factored in to this valuation level in terms of the pacing of orders and production and, I guess, the long-term pipeline?
Yeah, so I think the debate on the stock coming into the year, if you were very bullish on the stock coming into the year, which we were, it was predicated on two things: the commercial cycle extending longer, and 737 production rates going up. The commercial cycle so far has been very friendly. The way the cycle's played out has been, how can I say, just kind of softer than in previous years. I mean, parts of the cycle are going up, parts are going down, but net, it's actually been a very robust cycle.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the 737, however, the production delays there, that's got a big impact on the outlook. I mean, if you look at the Street's earnings forecast for the company for 19, they're going to be cut in half at least, and they're going to be an impact in 20 now too, for sure.
Carter, are you going to cover Virgin Galactic? You got a buy on that? What do you?
As exciting as commercial space can be for some capital flows, there are areas that I think are a bit riskier than others. I think you look at valuation of Virgin Galactic is, I think a little north of 10x the revenues that are implied in the backlog. So there's going to have to be a lot of growth in that business, or it's going to have to be significantly more profitable than any of the other ventures that we've seen to make that capital high return capital. But it's a sexy part of the market, no doubt.
Really? And is it time, Ron? Is it early? Is it good to be the
Yeah, I mean,
first?
what you're seeing now, I mean, there's been a big push by the Trump administration on space, everything with Space Force, a push into commercial space. If you look at what Secretary Ross has been saying about space, there's been a big push into commercial space. I do think it's time, right? And, on some degree, I think the valuation, and this is maybe where I disagree with Carter, might be justified because it's a burgeoning industry. I mean, we're just starting, right? And if you look at the changes that have happened with SpaceX, Blue Origin, launch costs coming down, I think this is a really exciting time to be in commercial space.
Maybe the business news anchors won't be able to use the word space anymore because they'll be saying commercial space.
Oh.
And they'll finally
the space.
They'll finally come up with an actual word. Their effort to come up with a word that doesn't sound so hackneyed every time they say space. You know how they do the retail space, the space. Well, you can't say the commercial
sector over and over
you
again.
can't. I'd rather say you can't say
sector over and over again.
You can't say commercial space. Realm. Ooh, realm. That's like Game of Thrones-ish.
Right.
I like that.